Good afternoon, the honorable judges and my respected audiences. My name is Novia Najla and I'm from SMAN 1 Banyuwangi. And I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we oppose the motion this House would give social service and skill training for gambling offenders rather than imprisonment. This is a dangerous proposal. It would weaken the fear of punishment, betray victims of gambling-driven crimes, and open the door to abuse of the justice system. We will show that true inhibition is lost, victims are shortchanged, and soft programs alone won't work. Let me begin with my first point, the need for prevention. If gamblers know they will never see prison bars, why should they hesitate to break the law? What message do we send if criminals can evade jail by merely taking a class? Prevention depends on the certainty and seriousness of the consequences. If gambling offenders face only a community workshop instead of prison, the fear that stops many from offending vanishes. In fact, criminals commit crime partly because they perceive the benefits outweigh the risk. A study by the U.S. Department of Justice found that compulsive gamblers in prison had very serious offenses. Over one-third had a felony arrest on their record, and 30% admitted to committing robberies in the past year. These are serious crimes with real victims. If someone who robs or defrauds to fund gambling addiction faces only a holiday camp of skill training, where's the sting of punishment? Would such light consequences ever deter the next offender? Of course not. Without prison as a real threat, society tells would-be criminals says, don't worry, just attend a class and off you go. That is no prevention at all. We must demand consequences fitting the crime. Our second point is justice for victims. Gambling-related crimes are not victimless. They often involve fraud, theft, even violence. Thousands of people suffer when the gambler fails to pay debts. We cannot ignore their pain. Consider the UK data. Police record shows over 2,800 crimes linked to gambling in just 2 years, from 2019 to 2020. For fraud and burglary to violent offenses. Those crimes have real victims, families betrayed by embezzlement, elderly people robbed of savings, communities terrorized by violence. If this motion passes, what justice do they see? Should an elderly widow who was defrauded have her attacker attend a woodworking class instead of prison? What? Would that feel like justice? Hardly. Victims want wrongdoers held accountable. Instead, this proposal hands the criminal what amounts to a soft slap on the wrist. No one will ever feel safe or respected by that outcome. Moreover, research tells us how much harm gambling addicts to. In one study of prisoners, half of pathological gamblers admitted committing a crime to fund their gambling addiction. In other words, the largest single cause of their criminal record was the gamble gone wrong, taking money by force or fraud. These victims did nothing to deserve it. Justice demands that punishment match the harm. Finally, our third point, the risk of abuse and ineffectiveness of such soft alternatives. Can we realistically expect all these offenders to sincerely engage in community programs? History says no. Criminal offenders often view community service as a holiday or a checkbox, not a life-changing experience. Many will do the bare minimum or even shirk their responsibility. Remember, only 9% of probable gamblers in prison reported ever receiving any help for their addiction there. If even prison, where they have no choice, gives them scant treatment, what hope does the voluntary training scheme hold? Will their addicts suddenly turn model citizens because of it? Or will they be tempted to game the system? We also risk a two-sided justice. Wealthy or lucky gamblers might actually dodge jail entirely, while others still serve time. That's unfair. And what if offenders refuse or fail the program? We either have to send them to prison anyway, making the reform pointless, or let them off completely. Neither outcome is acceptable. The parole argument aside, we must ask, is a vocational training workshop a serious punishment? In many cases, absolutely not. It is simply too easy to evade. Offenders might skip classes or foul them off on others. Without the coercive power of incarceration, we lack enforcement. Ladies and gentlemen, the opposition stands firmly against this motion. We will not replace prison with freedom. Criminals who inflict harm via gambling must face punishment strong enough to deter them and others. And they must answer to the victims they've harmed. Giving them social service and skill training instead of jail is naive and dangerous. It will weaken deterrence, deny victim justice, and open the door to abuse. The state's response to crime must be proportionate and certain, nothing less. For these reasons, we urge you to reject this motion. Thank you.